My name is Caleb. I'm working with Student UI, and my team members are David and James. That's great. This is a picture of what the Student UI currently looks like. Here's a placeholder video. This is eventually going to be streamed from the device. There's currently, and here's the area where we have for students to insert notes, take notes. We're going to use the data to extract some information on the server. But as it is, it's a full featured notes editor, similar to Microsoft Word or Google Docs. And then down here is a live tag cloud. That's something that we're working on this quarter. And there's currently 3 layouts that you can choose that will pop the video out or stack these instead of having them side by side. So our goals for this quarter are to get the live tag cloud working, and I'll explain that, and also to build this, I guess what we're calling an importance model, which is a model that we're going to apply to the video so that we can condense it into the important parts. And so you'll be able to turn the full lecture into a shorter, say 5 or 10 minute video that has the parts that we've determined are more important, using data, using some predetermined flags, as well as the notes that have been entered by students who are using this system. Those are our must-have goals, and then the goal that that would be really nice to have is to take this model and to apply it to real video, which would involve us, hooking up with the people who are, providing that stream, finding out how to get it into our location. Technologies we're using are all web-based technologies, a lot of JavaScript. We're using the Yahoo user interface libraries for parsing notes and communicating with Moodle PHP pages using HTTP requests and AJAX. So it's fast, and we're doing as much work as we can on the client side because there's going to be potentially a lot of students in the classroom. So we want to offload as much as the work for processing the notes onto the clients, and then have them be sending minimal information to the server via JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, which is a way of passing around data, especially good for use of JavaScript. What we currently have is a UI that I just showed you from last quarter. It has some additional functionality built into it, mainly JavaScript functions for parsing the notes and for getting them ready to send back to the server, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. We have a working local Moodle server with our student UI activity running, and like I said, we have some new JavaScript for parsing notes on the client. And then we have a test environment that hasn't been used yet, but it's ready to go. I basically have a bunch of virtual machines. One of them is running the server, and they're all going to be able to, we'll be able to, on a single computer, see how a bunch of clients could interact with the one instance of Moodle, which is going to be running on campus servers. What we still need is we're starting to get more into some PHP, so listening for these requests that are coming from the student client pages, and doing some aggregation of the notes information. We need more JavaScript because we're going to now be getting information back from the server to display it into the live tag cloud, and also we need to connect to the video stream. So those are the only 2 slides I have, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we're actually going to build this importance model that we want to apply to the video to do this condensing, which has kind of been a long-term goal of this part of the whole system. And so one part is to use the notes, which is what we've really been focusing on at the end of last quarter and now these first few weeks. And the way we're doing that is to periodically, so say every 10 seconds or so, what will happen is that you'll have JavaScript running on the page, kind of looking at the notes you're typing, and it will be able to produce what you've typed within those 10 seconds. And it won't, it'll forget what you typed before that, because you may have typed a bunch of notes, and it'll just take what you've added. And then what it'll do is remove, stop words, what we call stop words, or, words like and the, take those out and just get the interesting words. And it'll remove, fluff and potentially, profanity or whatever people type in their notes these days. And then it's going to build like a little hash table out of that, which will be, maybe, I don't know how many words can you type in 10 seconds, 10 or 15 or whatever, and it's going to send that information back to the server. So there's going to be clients all over the classroom sending in basically these little tables of words that everyone has typed. And then we're going to have a single page on the Moodle server, which is going to aggregate these things and build basically a frequency list of the most frequent words that have been typed. Hopefully, if all the people are taking notes at the same time about what the professor is saying or what's on the screen, there's going to be some recurrence in these words, and we'll be able to build then a tag cloud, basically, of words that are important at that current time. That will be broadcasted to all the clients, and what you'll have is a little tag cloud on the page that will display, kind of a bunch of words that represent what's going on in the lecture right now and what's important. So the aggregation page on the server is also going to be saving that information so that we can kind of have a histogram or a graph representing the frequency of notes throughout the course of the lecture. And we want to use that as one thing to build this importance model. And so we're assuming that more important parts of the lecture are going to be correlated with times in the lecture where more notes were being taken. And so that's going to be remembered and used for part of our model. And then the second thing we want to use for our model is something that was suggested by Professor Kastner at the beginning of this quarter, which is working on the assumption that you can't really get everything that's important just out of the frequency of note-taking, but that we want to have kind of like a predetermined thing where maybe the professor will write a few sentences on what's important in this lecture or what he's expecting to be the important points. And what we can do is compare the important words, or compare the words that are being sent up from all these clients with that text. And then we can correlate those times in the lecture when the words that were actually typed by students correlated with what the professor thought was important before the lecture started, and kind of weight those areas as more important. So that's one thing we're going to play around with, and we're going to build functionality for that into our Moodle processing side. And that's it. Any questions?